And so now we'll have an opportunity to move on to some questions that our President Club members sent in, and ones that you hadn't been answered yet. And we received quite a few, actually, and so, which is great. So let's first up, first question, we'll touch on COVID, of course. Our former college chaplain, the Reverend Dr. Lynn Priest, class of 1967, hi Lynn, asked a few questions related to the pandemic. How is the college seeking to control COVID? Is the college planning to continue offering in-person classes next semester? How has the pandemic affected the college financial picture? And I know you kind of answered that before, but maybe go in a little deeper.
Yeah, thanks Rick, and thanks Lynn for the question. I can give a few more details for your answer. It's really been an amazing semester. Our team, our staff, we put together a institutional response team to guide all of our efforts around COVID. And at one point, I know this summer we counted, there were 115 students, staff, and faculty focused on one of the different topics and aspects of opening up in person this fall. One of those was around a testing program in partnership with Edward Elmhurst. We were able to implement testing, and I think we actually did far more testing than a lot of schools have done, pretty intensive testing in our student athlete area, because they were going to be undertaking activities that would bring them into closer contact, but also surveillance testing in our resident students and really everyone across the campus. So that was an important part of our strategy. We had detailed strategies around isolation and quarantine. Isolation is for those that are ill. Quarantine is for those that are healthy but might have been exposed. And so we set aside one of our dormitories exclusively to that purpose, and hired contact tracers to do a lot of work to enable all of that to happen, and to try to minimize the impact anytime that someone did contract COVID. And we also had a very intensive marketing campaign, went under the tagline #TogetherInC, that was all about the behaviors that we expect our community members to utilize, to practice mask wearing and social distancing and hygiene and cleaning and everything else. And I really feel that it was extremely well done. It was just everywhere around campus, and I believe it was very impactful. At the end of the day, all these efforts were guided by our conversations with the CDC and our local departments of health. I'd also add great thanks not only to that institutional response team, but also our Dyson Wellness Center staff, who've been right at the forefront of all of this, providing guidance on health, helping to lead all that contact tracing, the testing protocols, and what have you. And then again, just the faculty and staff throughout campus for their detailed and comprehensive planning work to make it possible. I do believe it's worked. We've certainly had cases, and even had a surge of cases for a couple of weeks, last week of October, first week of November, that we had to tackle. But we were able to manage through it and provide that in-person experience this fall, and look forward to doing it next semester as well. And I feel we'll be even better prepared with all the learnings we've had from this fall, even better prepared for the spring semester, which we also intend to be in similar fashion in person. The impact overall, you asked about the financial, as I kind of alluded to in my remarks. We were able to ultimately balance our budget this past year, and are working on a balanced budget for this year, though it's put a significant strain on our resources, and there are absolutely still uncertainties about how the spring semester might unfold that could scuttle that. But we hope it doesn't. We've been working very hard to maintain that. I would just add one more little plug again there for your giving, and just remind everybody, we do have a specific fund, the Cardinal Financial Impact Fund, that is specifically targeted towards helping students that are adversely affected because of the COVID situation. Many of you gave to that. It was very impactful in the spring when all of a sudden students needed to go remote. Not everybody had technology available to them. We were able to purchase some of those things and provide airplane airplane trips home and what have you when we went remote, and that fund is still critical for us. So thank you, Len.
Thanks, Troy. On a related note, Jeff Gross, class of 2008, and his wife Wendy ask, quote, how have you turned the COVID pandemic into an opportunity? For example, any new science programs or research programs? Also, do you listen to WONC? So there's two different questions, aren't they?
Slightly different. Thank you for those questions. As I mentioned in remarks, certainly in terms of new programs, the health sciences are more important than ever to our campus, and I've really mentioned that. I would say in some regards, our tremendous ITS technology group here on campus has in some ways been laying the groundwork for this transition to remote for the last several years. Tremendous leadership there and work and effort put the infrastructure in place for us to be able to transition to remote. We never would have been able to do it without that effort. I mean, if this had happened 3-4 years ago, I honestly don't know what we would have done, but thankfully that the proactive effort was realized. The faculty, they have done more and more. Working through the summer to re-envision their classes for this fall and to use technology in very new and creative ways. That has all, those activities of incorporating more technology into pedagogy has really accelerated with the pandemic, of course. And we expect that to carry forward with new learnings, even when I think fast forward to next fall, when we really do hope to be kind of really pretty much completely in person and hope it to be some kind of new normal. I've already heard lots of stories of ways that new techniques, new technologies, new ideas are going to be incorporated into the classroom to supplement, to add to that very valuable in-person engagement between faculty and student that we pride. Slight detour, WONC, absolutely. A lot of times I find myself listening to WONC when our athletics are taking place and they're broadcasting some of our competitive events, which of course are not happening this fall. So unfortunately that has fallen the wayside. But I will put a plug into one of the shows. My executive assistant, some of you have interacted with Kimberly Salzburn, my executive assistant in the president's office, and her son Jake helps lead the Between the Lines show from 6 to 9 a.m. on Mondays and Fridays on WONC. So tune in to listen to Jake during that show.
There's a plug. Wow, that was good. So next question, Thomas Paleka, class of 1983, asks, do you think the pandemic will have a lasting impact on how classes and programs are structured? Will virtual learning become a part of the educational model as corporations are unlikely to return to a 5 days per week and 9-to-5 structure?
Thanks, Rick. Yeah, I think I've probably touched on the remote learning piece of that. And I would just highlight, before the pandemic, we already did have some classes that were online, particularly summertime classes. Our students sometimes want to take classes during the summer to maybe get ahead or at least make sure they're on pace for graduation. And they tend to want to go home and do those remotely. And so we added an increasing number of classes over the past few years that were online in the summer so that they could be taking those classes from the professors that they know and love. And so that online isn't completely new to us, even though it's clearly not our core model of instruction. And so we've really been able to build on that in pretty significant ways. Your comment about the corporations and changing, I mean, remote work is something that we've been spending a lot of time talking about. Of course, not only did we need to convert instruction to remote back in March, we had to go to remote work for the vast majority of faculty and staff on campus. And so that was a challenge, and a lot of different areas and functions around campus had to very quickly modify and adapt. Some were, frankly, more ready for that than others. In fact, Rick's area had been working hard over the last 2 or 3 years to get all of data and other kinds of things online so that calling officers, fundraisers could be remote and be out on the road to visit you all and not have to be in the office so much. So they were kind of a step ahead, I think, maybe of a lot of groups. But a lot of other groups around campus have learned a lot in the past 7, 8 months, whatever it's been now. And there's no question that some of those learnings will carry forward into the future, enabling different lifestyle choices in terms of being in the office versus working from home for various individuals around the campus. So there's definitely a lot of learnings happening. I don't think we've had time to pause and reflect on that yet, but we will over time to make sure we capture those learnings.
Yeah, Troy, our fundraisers, especially our major gift officers that are, or all of our fundraising officers, because we're reaching out to so many of our alumni, and we find them in interesting different ways than we used to by just going to their offices. So we're getting a really good glimpse of what their world's like and how many are kind of moving to that all the time. I know Megan Lynch, our corporations director of corporate relations, is really finding some interesting things as she's working with corporations and connecting with the college and how they're now and looking at the future, how they're going to exist and run their companies, and that'll be very helpful, I think, to our faculty and as we move forward on that. So that was a really good question, and appreciate your answer. Bill Davis, our next question. Bill Davis, class of 1971, and president of the North Central College African American Alumni Association. He would like to know if we're considering adding alumni not employed by the college to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Good question.
Oh, thank you, Bill, and Bill and Terry. Thank you for. I heard your name, Rick, mentioned your name joining the President's Club this year. Thank you for doing that. I'm humbled by your vote of confidence in us with that and joining the President's Club. It's very much appreciated, and I very much appreciated the dialogue that you and I have had, especially this summer, with many of the events going on. And I really appreciate your counsel and advice, and I cherish that ongoing. And as far as the task force, one of the core charges for that task force is very active and involved engagement with alumni in terms of as a core source of input to the many questions and concerns that we're tackling. One thing that we've done that I think is going to open the door and provide that opportunity is we've just over the past, even just in the past few weeks, established some important sub-working groups. So groups that are really going to focus on individual topics to tackle them, things like recruitment, retention, development of staff, and then a separate one focused on faculty, another one focused on our bias incident policies and so forth. And that's something that I think as we are adding right now, assembling some of those working groups and adding members to that, I think that's a real opportunity, and I'll have that discussion with the leaders of the task force. So thank you for your question, and again for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Next question comes from Mary Mullen, class of 1962 from Madison, Wisconsin. And Mary tells us, quote, as a participant in the first student exchange between North Central College and Spelman College in 1960, I've been very happy to read about NCC's efforts toward diversity, equity, and inclusion. In your opinion, where has NCC been most successful in this effort, and what has been most challenging?
Well, thank you for that question as well. And and Mary, I'm thrilled to hear that you were part of that program. It was fascinating to learn about that program myself, and I actually had a chance to talk about it with Beverly Tatum, who was the most recent president at Spelman. It would be amazing if we could get something like that reestablished. So thank you for that question. successes and challenges, I'm really pleased that at the energy level right now that we have on the task force. It really is accelerating, and there really is a lot of work getting done to advance things forward on campus right now. Efforts and activities around training for our staff and our faculty, really trying to create more profound and interactive experiences. In fact, if I jump back, Bill Davis, this was a conversation that we had this summer, and you've had a lifetime of experience in training, and you emphasized to me, and from my understanding, how important it was to have those truly engaging, interactive experiences. And I'm probably not using the right language that you used. You were very eloquent in describing it, but those kinds of intensive experiences are really a key part of any kind of training and learning. And I really believe that our team has their eye on that and creating those experiences for trainings on campus. And we've been working hard on that with our staff and faculty. It's not easy to do. It takes time, but I'm proud of where we are in terms of moving forward with that. I think we've made a lot of progress in just transparency of things that are going on with campus, including the negative things, the bad bias incidents and other kinds of things. I think the transparency, we've created that new website to capture and make available what's going on campus with regard to those kinds of things. And we're, I believe, also putting similar energy around students and the training there. One of the things that we have to grapple with as an institution, it's just part of being higher education, is that the hard work of really building that inclusive culture is doubly hard, because every year we welcome in, for us about 900 new students every year onto campus that are coming from all walks of life and locations and experiences and mindsets. And so that effort, that activity of making this an inclusive environment is just an ongoing one. It has to be ingrained in the culture of the institution, and it's something that we're working hard toward. I think one of the areas that you highlight for challenges, and I'll be blunt, we've not done a good job of, is in our development and retention for staff and faculty of color. And we've had some, even in my tenure, we've had some outstanding talent join this institution that have left and moved on to other opportunities elsewhere. And so, that's been a challenge, and that's why I'm thankful that we now have launched a working group specifically on those issues. It's not that we've been ignoring them, but we haven't been successful, and we've got to do better and do more. So I'm looking forward to seeing impact from those working groups. Thank you for that question, Mary.
Thanks, Troy. Karen Solomon, class of 1984. Karen Solomon and her husband, Wright King, ask, how is the college working to address changing workforce expectations regarding demonstration of competencies that students have mastered? And what discussions about the expansion of types of credentials are occurring within the faculty?
Thank you, Karen. That's a great question, and it's a topic that is really just starting to get some energy in a few different ways. One that I would highlight, when we restructured our Gen Ed program and launched that a couple of years back, we created icons, interdisciplinary connection topics for our students. So our student gets to pick their theme or the thread of things that they're interested in for their Gen Ed courses. And then some of the courses that they then take will funnel into that particular theme, which might be around the environment or social change or justice, or there's 8 different ones. And we're actually working on turning those into transcriptable experiences that'll really appear on their transcript and potentially even their diploma. And we've got logos for each of those icons that students now choose to kind of basically tailor their Gen Ed experience to a theme that is impactful for them. So that's one area that's come up. It's something that We've recently launched a career readiness committee to work on a new part of our curriculum, which would be that every student would have 4 credit hours that are specifically geared toward career readiness, which can be a lot of different things. It can be preparing for graduate school, it can be their education training, or it can just be preparing for the workforce. And so that's another area. That group is going to be touching on some of these topics that you're asking about. And then the third thing that I would just highlight is that we have just assembled a task force, primarily of faculty, to think innovatively about our academic programs going forward. They're being charged to take a big picture view, a long-term view, and a direct view, look at what we're doing now, but what also we can be doing differently in the future. And I really think this question will fit squarely in the charge of that new effort from the faculty, which is starting just now, but will take us through not just this academic year, but the next academic year as well, before we kind of have the final output from that task force. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Troy. We've got 2 more questions before we finish up the evening. So the first one from Carlos Barba, we have from North Central grads. Actually, no, this one's from the Mans. That's right, the next one's from Carlos. So the Mans, John asked, and his 2 sons of our President's Club members too, could you please provide an update on CCIW plans for various teams? Then the other one is from Carlos Barba, who asked, will we ever have lights and turf for the baseball field so we aren't having to use Wheaton's facilities for home games? That was Carlos. So those are the 2 questions. The Mans have the one about kind of what's going on.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. I hinted at in my remarks that we weren't having athletic competition this fall. Athletics is very important to the life of North Central College, and we're doing everything we can to provide an athletic experience for our student athletes. Current plan as it stands now, we will have our winter sports starting a little bit later than normal, sort of in mid-January. Those will take off and hopefully have a shortened but nevertheless enriching competitive season. The spring sports, we're still largely targeting being kind of on time, a similar schedule. And the spring sports are really the ones that lost out completely this past year when the pandemic kicked in. I mean, they just lost their entire experience. So there's a lot of energy and effort in making sure that we do everything possible to provide the spring sports to have as full an experience as possible. And then on top of that, the fall sports that missed out this fall, we're hoping to be able to provide some level of an experience during the spring. It's presenting lots of challenges, trying to have all these things going on at once as a challenge for facilities, space, and everything else, but we're going to do our best in that regard. And we're continuing to monitor the development of COVID and everything else as we proceed toward that. And following the guidelines and the recommendations of the NCAA, which have continued to evolve but are starting to be pretty clear in terms of what's going to be required of us to have athletic competitions. Carlos, the lights for the baseball field. You've asked me that before. Carlos is a guy that I work out with. And by the way, Carlos, I'm not sure I saw you at workout today at the gym. So I hope you were out on the road raising money for the baseball field lights. No, I'm kidding, but we're working hard on that, Rick and the team. That's definitely one of the things that we're raising money for, and we do hope that over the next couple of years we're able to put lights not only on the baseball field, but also for the softball field. So we're working on it. We're trying to get there.
Thanks, Troy. Last question. We had a couple questions related to the Scheimer. We're going to kind of put these together, but related to the Scheimer Great Books School. Scheimer graduate from the class of 1966, Ellen Rosenthal, asked, how is the Scheimer Great Books program doing? Is it able to attract and keep students? Also, Scheimer alums Brad Englert asked for a quick update on the Scheimer Great Books program.
Well, thank you for writing in and asking about the program. I think it's going very well. we are expanding our presence, both kind of regionally and nationally, and increasingly attracting students from beyond this local region where a lot of our normal student body comes from. So we've been having success at attracting students. We are enrollments in the Scheimer courses is largely steady. Our aspiration is still to see that grow over time, and I would say it's steady right now, and that includes some of our students that might be in other majors on campus taking advantage of the opportunity to experience some of those Scheimer Great Book courses and registering for some of those with particular interest in the natural sciences and the humanities. So the Great Books are alive and well at North Central. To be clear, I think we still have a lot that we hope to and can learn in terms of recruiting students that really want to focus their education on the Great Books program, and so we're going to continue to be working on that. And thank you all. Some of the Scheimer alumni have been fantastic at providing their financial support to that program, and I want to acknowledge that and really appreciate your ongoing support of the Scheimer Great Books program.
Troy? Well, that does it for us for the evening, except for hang in there. Thank you so much, Troy, for answering those questions. I hope they were helpful. And thank all of you again for joining us tonight and for your just tremendous, loyal, ongoing support throughout this year and all the years.